The Notre Dame Fighting Irish had their spring game yesterday on Peacock. I've never done hard drugs, but I have to believe it feels a lot like getting a Peacock subscription and then canceling it right after the spring game finished up. What can we take away from this one? We'll start with the quarterbacks. Before we do that, though, if you're a Notre Dame fan, make sure you are subscribed. I want y'all a part of this. If you are a Notre Dame fan and want to see more Fighting Irish content, the best way to let us know that is by subscribing to the channel. We get to see, hey, from what video, who subscribed. So Fighting Irish fans, if you want more Irish content, go ahead and subscribe. We appreciate y'all in advance for doing that for us. As I said, the quarterbacks, it's the story of the spring. It's the story of the spring game. The good news is I think you could be okay with all three of these guys rolling into the game against Miami tomorrow. I really do. I think all of them showed they're capable. I think all of them showed they could keep the Carr between the lines for you. But I would say, speaking of Carr, I think CJ Carr showed the most pop. What did we say going into the spring game? I want to see who's able to keep the conversation going, who's able to keep the drive rolling, who's able to keep the offense picking up first downs, get us in the paint. To me, that was CJ Carr. Now, I get it's a spring game. I get that we're not totally scheming everything up how we would, or maybe calling the game for the officials exactly the same way that we would. But he showed the most, to me, potential, which isn't really a storyline. You knew that he had the highest ceiling of this group, but to see him continuing to elevate and reach that, that to me was really, really exciting. Also should be noted, the knock on him, or the question on him, I suppose, in this spring game was, well, is he going to be able to do the boring play? Because he's so talented, and sometimes when you're so talented and competitive, you want to force things downfield. Couple of plays where looks like a dead play, gets out of the pocket, throws it away. Hey, it's maturity. It's growth. Now, we'll get to Steve Angeli in a second, but Kenny Minchey, I thought, looked solid yesterday. The biggest takeaway to me was guy needs a role. There was a play yesterday where Kenny Minchey, near the goal line, scrambles out, runs into the end zone, just casually throws down a backflip. Rule on this show, if you have a quarterback that can do a backflip, he needs to be on the field in some way, shape, or form. I think Kenny Minchey in the quarterback run game is a layup, especially with how good it was for you a year ago with Riley Leonard. Get Kenny Minchey in the game, man. Now, if he wins the job outright, more power to you. I feel better about CJ Carr and Steve Angeli than I do Kenny Minchey right now. But still, I think that he needs to have a role in some way, shape, or form. Just too much of a threat with his legs to not be a factor. Now, Steve Angeli, if you believe in rep science, took the first reps with the one offense. What does that mean? I don't know. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I think that coming out of the spring game, though, I'm going to need to see more from him during fall camp if I'm the staff, just based on the peak we got in that spring game. Before that spring game, I thought, okay, I think that he probably just has to not lose the job. I think CJ Carr has to come take it from him, or Kenny Minchey has to come take it from him. I think they're in the process of doing that, is my feel on this. Now, is that reality in-house? No way to know. But that's kind of how I think this thing is progressing. I think Steve Angeli will have to take some more steps during fall camp to separate. Now, that's not me telling you he's not still the number one guy. That's just the takeaway I had from yesterday's spring game overall. But still, I'd be surprised if he isn't factoring into starting week one against Miami. Jaden Greathouse, moving on to some skill players here. Didn't get a ton of burn. You know what he is. You saw him the last two games of the season just put on a clinic against Penn State and Ohio State. He's going to be a lot more in the slot this season. He's going to be nasty. Charles Power, director of scouting and rankings here for On 3, says that Jaden Greathouse as a big slot is more of his natural position anyway. Matchup problem, his size, the way he moves. He put the defender on skates in one third down conversion he had yesterday. He's going to be a baller. Buy all the Jaden Greathouse stock you can, because I think he's going to benefit as well from the more pass-friendly, more vertical kind of offense-friendly quarterback they'll have. I'm very, very excited to see what he is. But just got a little peek yesterday. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Now, Elijah Burris, if that name sounds familiar, Plaxico Burris' son, he can play now. Now, I don't know how he factors in the rotation, but he can play. True freshman, early enrollee, had a touchdown, made a couple of nice catches. You start to notice all the names on this roster, though, from Elijah Burris to Jerome Bettis Jr. to Jordan Clark last year. There's a lot of guys that are sons of NFL players that end up playing for Marcus Freeman. I think that's worth noting, because you have fathers you have to believe are pretty involved in the football careers of their sons and saying, you know what, you can go anywhere in the country. We're going to send you to go play for Marcus Freeman. I think that's worth noting. I think the development and I think that the trust they have in him, I think that's something that should point pretty positively when it comes to the trajectory of Notre Dame football under Marcus Freeman. Now, defensively, I get it's a spring game. I don't think you're showing a ton schematically, but Chris Ash, new DC for the Fighting Irish, faces change on the defensive side. Again, new DC, temperature hasn't changed. It's still a downhill, aggressive, intense operation on defense for Notre Dame. Most visibly, I think that showed itself in a goal line stand for the defense. Walk-on safety Luke Talich, back-to-back plays, fills the gap, looking like late 20-teens Cato, and I mean just hitting, absolutely hitting. Walk-on safety, been in the system for a while now. If a dude like that, who, again, not on scholarship, but walks on originally, is playing at that level, that intensity level, that tells you the genetics and the traits of this defense, and I think that's going to be something that's consistent and sustainable here across the board for Notre Dame in 2025, even with a new DC, even with production loss from last year. Carson Hobbs, talk about guys that maybe could get a game ball from this spring game. I mean, the defensive back that made a lot of plays. It felt like he was just consistently having pass breakups and doing the sick celebration with like the seatbelt. Saw that a lot. Bryce Young, not the Bama quarterback, but if you're a Notre Dame fan, you already know this guy. 6'7", 260. Blocked like 17 kicks last year. Just ridiculous. I think he's probably the next great defensive lineman for Notre Dame. I don't think that's saying a whole lot for those of you that follow this closely. Didn't see a ton from him yesterday, but just the physical skill set, the developmental process Notre Dame has in place. I think he's going to have a big year, and you saw flashes from him yesterday. Now, out of spring, here's how we feel about Notre Dame. I think it is becoming increasingly more important, if you're a Notre Dame fan, to know that you have the quarterback position right. And that's a luxury because, quite frankly, everything else around Notre Dame on that roster, I think, is in a good enough spot to go win. So if you got a guy at quarterback that can make the difference for you against Miami, against a Texas A&M, Notre Dame's going to have a chance to not just make the playoff, but be right back in the national title game. Now, that's saying a lot. It'll take a lot, I think, from a leadership standpoint to replace what they lost. But overall, dude, I don't see a ton of holes on this roster. Are there things to shore up? There is for everybody right now during the spring. It's part of what the portal's for. But if you can have a dude at quarterback that can make that difference and get you into that 12-team playoff, the Marcus Freeman traits are going to show up. The traits of this football team from last year, the guys that were on this squad, those are going to show up yet again. And Notre Dame, surprise, surprise, they will be a force for the rest of college football to deal with. So Notre Dame fans, let me know, who do you want to start game one for your Irish at quarterback? For Cato on the 1 and 2s, for myself, JD PicKell, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.